What's up all you code lifers? Welcome to a new video by Code Life Ninja. I am your host Stevie V, and in this video we are going to go over how to set up your environment, your Visual Studio, to be able to do development on AWS Lambdas using C#. It's pretty easy to do, so let's get to it. Okay, so there are a couple things we need to do to get our Visual Studio up and running to do development on AWS Lambdas with C#. Currently I am running Visual Studio 2019 Community Edition. This setup will work with Visual Studio 2017 and 2019. Those are the only two versions that I'm aware of that have the AWS Toolkit available. So what we're going to do is we're going to add the AWS Toolkit. So to do that, it's pretty simple. You go up to Extensions, Manage Extensions, and we're going to search for it online. So let's, where's the search thing? AWS Toolkit. Okay, and there you have it, AWS Toolkit for Visual Studio 27 and 2019. Like I was saying, 2017 and 2019 are the only versions that allow this. We are running Visual Studio 2019, and it's that simple. So it says then you just restart Visual Studio. So I'm gonna pause this video and we'll be back. Okay, so as soon as you close Visual Studio, you do see this window pop up, the VS IX installer, and we will click modify to agree and it'll install. But what this brings to us is templates that out of the box templates that you could create Lambda projects. It also brings the availability to interact with your AWS environment, meaning you could deploy to your Lambdas, you could check out your resources out on AWS if you have the proper credentials. But if you don't have the proper credentials, it at least gives you the ability to just spin up a new project, select, hey, I want to create me a project for an AWS Lambda project. But we'll let this churn and burn. I will pause here and we will get back. Okay, so now that's done installing, you'll notice two differences. You'll notice that over here we could come up here and we could go to View, and we have an AWS Explorer. What that does is it's a window on, it's like Server Explorer but connecting to your AWS accounts. And as you can see, I do have this profile will pull from your, if you set up your CLI, if you configured your AWS CLI with some credentials. And I will show you how to just add these profiles manually through here without using the CLI, the Amazon CLI. Okay. But another thing you will notice is if you go to File, New Projects, you now have a variety of AWS supported application templates. So as you can see, there's a serverless application with tests. That is a more complex template and can be used to deploy multiple Lambdas out there, or you have the AWS Lambda project with tests. Both those include a unit test project, and then you have the other two without the unit test project. Typically I typically personally have only dealt with the AWS Lambda project because it is just a single Lambda function. And what is a Lambda function? It's basically a single function that runs serverlessly in the cloud. So you might be wondering, should I be using 2019 or 2017? In my opinion, you do want to use Visual Studio 2019. If it's through your job, hey, great. But if you don't have it through your job, there is a community edition. Download it today. It's free to use. You could download it, start building. But what is the difference? Visual Studio 2019 supports .NET Core 3.0, and AWS Lambda's recently added that support. So if you want to be using the latest and greatest .NET Core frameworks, I highly suggest using Visual Studio 2019 because Visual Studio 2017 only supports .NET Core 2.1. I doubt they're ever going to upgrade Visual Studio 2017 to support higher frameworks, so you might want to move on to 2019. But that is the difference there, folks. If you have 2017, you got to remember you have to configure your Lambda to be a 2.1 .NET Core, and make sure any NuGet packages that you download and install are 2.1 framework compatible, or else you're going to run into a lot of problems. And that's another reason why I suggest you move on to 2019, because all the NuGet packages out there are moving on, so you want to keep up with the latest and greatest. Okay, so now let's set up a user. And how do you do that? So here we are in Visual Studio 2019. Here is where you set up the profiles, up in this corner in the AWS Explorer. So let's head on over to IAM, and so I'm in the IAM service out on the AWS console. I clicked on users, and we're going to add a new user. So, because typically you want to add new users, because hey, if you lose your computer and you're using your root admin, that is no bueno. You don't want that. So let's add one. We're going to do it VS 2019, and they will get programmatic access, because you do need an access ID and a secret key. So now we'll give some permissions. You can give an administrative access, or you could we'll just give them, we'll set up boundaries, and we'll only give this user permissions to, you can't, yeah, an existing policy. So we're going to do Lambda. We're going to give them full access. So I'll check that next. And we don't need this, so we'll just, I don't really mess with tags, but you can. And we'll create the user. Okay, it's successfully created. So now we're going to grab this access key for VS 2019 user. We're going to head back over here, and we're going to say, hey, I want to add a new profile. Profile name, we will call this VS 2019. And of course you could do follow your naming conventions, and then, or you could download the CSV file from IAM service, then import it, but we're just gonna manually set it up this way. And so now let's go grab the secret. So I will show that. We'll copy that and head back on over to Visual Studio, and now we will put in the secret key. Pasted that into there, and we'll just click OK. And so now we have Visual Studio 2019 user. If I try to click on CloudFront, I don't have access to anything else, but I do have access to all the AWS Lambdas, and that's how you could lock down that user. Because if I switch over to this Visual Studio 2017 user, they are an administrative access, so they could come here, they could see all the DynamoDBs, they could create tables. So that's the amazing thing about adding this AWS Toolkit, is you have access to a lot of different things, not just Lambdas. We are focusing in to Lambdas in this tutorial, but let's create a Lambda and ship it to production. Okay, so let's create us a Lambda. We're going to create a basic, simple Hello World Lambda, okay? So we're going to come up to your file, new project. We are going to just keep it simple and run with the AWS Lambda project with tests. I will click next. Now we'll name it. So we're just going to say simple hello world Lambda. Okay, it's just going to go there. We're going to just roll with that. And as you can see, the AWS Toolkit also added some blueprints that you could use. And what the blueprints do is they stub out a templated Lambda function for you. So you could run with the empty function. You could add in DynamoDB connectivity. You could add in a chatbot logic. I believe that's for Lex. Yeah, their Lex chatbot. So there are a number of different samples you could load in. We are just going to run with the empty function and we'll finish. So as that creates, okay, it's done. Phew, because I don't like dead air, but hey. Okay, so as you can see, we have our Lambda function. If you are not familiar with Lambdas, a Lambda, like I said earlier, is basically a function that runs serverlessly in the cloud. So what a Lambda is made up of is a function class, and it has a function handler method. That is the one and only entry point to come in. You have full control over what it takes in and what it passes out. In this case, it's just defaulted to a string. And it always has to bring in this context right here. What that context does is, for example, it gives you access to a logger. So you could say context.log and write something out to CloudWatch. If you're running this out in the cloud, it'll write to CloudWatch. So that's, in its simplest form, is a Lambda function stubbed out. So then it also adds tests. And right there it's passing in hello world right here, and it's asserting that it comes back out as capital, because as you can see it's doing a dot to upper. That's basically all it's doing. Okay, so you might be asking, can I debug this locally? Yes, you can. So let's put a breakpoint here. And what the AWS Toolkit provides is a mock Lambda test tool. And so you just run this locally like you do any project, most projects where you just click there. It's set up as the starting project. What happens is it spins up this executable, and it also spins up a web browser. So we are going to use this the Chrome one right here. I was having problems with the Edge one, so let's refresh this. And this is connected. So what this UI does is it sends in the JSON input, because that's all a Lambda takes in as a JSON string, and it converts into an object. In this case it's just a string, so we will just say string hello world in all lowercase. We'll scroll down, execute that. We hit our breakpoint. The input is hello world. It's going to return it in all caps. And let's head on back over to the testing tool, and as you can see, there is the result, hello world in all caps. If you do use the context, you could your logs will show up in this area over here. That's how simple it is to debug an AWS Lambda locally with C# and Visual Studio 2017, 2019. The testing tool is very similar. Okay dudes, so now that we got it all up and running, we have a project, we have the AWS Toolkit installed, we have proper IAM credentials. What next? Well, of course in the ideal situation you would have CI/CD to do all the deployments and whatnots, but we're going to run it fast and loose, and we're just going to deploy from our local environment. So here we are out in the Ohio region. I have 4 lambdas out there. We're going to make that one more. So let's head on over to Visual Studio. We'll stop the debugger. We've tested it. It's ready to go. So all you do is come over here to your AWS Lambda, or even better, you just right click here and you say publish to AWS Lambda. So what we're going to do here is we're going to give it a function name, and in this case we're just going to call it simple hello world lambda. We are going to follow the other thing. It set up the assembly name for us. It set in the type, the namespace to the function, and then it also gave the function name. Those, if you do change that up, you do need to make sure to update those. You can check this box to save the settings to a defaults.json, so you could check that in, and anybody who pulls the project will have that file, or it just basically saves it. And we're going to switch the region to US East Ohio, and we're going to switch this to our Visual Studio 2019 user. As you can see, it is .NET Core version 3.1. If we click next, here is where you set up the role that it's going to use. I'm just going to give it a hello world role, a lambda hello world role, and we're not going to mess with any other settings. You could set up VPCs, dead letter queues, KMS keys, environmental keys would go in here also, but we're not going into those depths, so let's send it out to the cloud. So there it is. Our user, our Visual Studio 2019 user, did have access to deploy this because he has full access to lambdas. So here it spins up this how you could hit your lambda. If you don't, if you wanted, you could do that anytime. You come out to AWS Explorer, extend this. There's our new lambda out in the cloud, and if you double click that, it brings up the same window. So now we could test this with the string hello world and then invoke it. As you could see, our response is hello world in all caps. So now let's head over to the AWS side of things, and if we refresh this, there it is. It is our simple hello world lambda out in production. It's that simple. So there you have it, folks. It's that simple to get your Visual Studio up and running to do development on AWS Lambdas with C#. I am your host, Stevie V, and this is another Code Life Ninja video. And why Code Life? Because coding is not just a job but a way of life. Keep tuning in. We are dedicated to a serverless world using C# development. So we will be putting out more content on AWS, Azure, and anything serverless. But keep tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks, and we'll see you in the next one.